Hello and welcome to Gaming Insight with me, Steve Saylor, the weekly podcast where I and a special guest talk about the biggest gaming news of the week for about 30-ish minutes. Today's guest is senior editor at Kotaku, Alyssa Mercante. Hello, Alyssa. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
I'm so excited to be here. I wish it was under slightly different circumstances, but I am very happy to be here. You and I have hung out in person before, and I adore you, so I'm very excited.
Right back at you. And yes, I do wish that our first sort of conversation officially on content wasn't with regard to this situation, but I wanted to, you're going to come back at a different point, and we'll make sure that, we'll have a much fun, more fun story to talk about it next time. All right. But before we get into this week's topic, I want to let folks know that if you would like to help out the show and support it, you can be able to go to patreon.com/Steve Saylor, where paid members get this podcast a day early, and also a daily morning podcast with me where I talk about the daily gaming and accessibility news and more. All right, Alyssa, so this has been a very heavy topic over the past couple weeks, and it kind of, I don't want to say it stemmed from your article, but it definitely had sort of sparked something in a sense with some folks in regards to your article about Sweet Baby Inc. And the article is Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does. And you actually went in and actually looked into what Sweet Baby does, and then also went into the group that was against Sweet Baby Inc. For those who may not know kind of what the whole thing is, and they've been living under a rock, because God bless them if they have been and they haven't heard anything about this. But can you give us kind of a quick rundown of what your article talks about?
Yeah. So there's kind of two different instances where Sweet Baby Inc., which is a narrative development and writing company, were the subject of some pretty interesting internet conversations. There's no actual clear, proven 100% breadcrumb trail from this Kiwi Farms post from October 2023 that was discussing how Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement in Alan Wake 2 was the biggest scandal in gaming history, and the then creation of a Steam page that was called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, which was created to list all of the games that Sweet Baby Inc. worked on, their words, because they were very careful in some ways that their words was so that people could make an informed decision before they buy these games that this company was involved in them. And then that company, Steam page was noticed by someone at the company. That person at the company highlighted that it kind of violated Steam TOS in the sense that it was we don't like the stuff in these games because they're pushing, woke agendas and da-da-da-da. And they asked, how is this not taken down? How does this still exist? Then that Steam page got bigger and bigger. They spun off a Discord called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected Discord, and it kind of just exploded from there. So I went into the Discord and I interviewed Sweet Baby Inc. to kind of try and see what the people in the Discord thought they were doing, what they thought the purpose of the Steam page was, what they thought Sweet Baby Inc. did, and then actually talk to Sweet Baby Inc. And so that was what the piece was kind of covering, that Sweet Baby Inc. is a really small narrative development company that gets brought in as contractors, usually pretty late in stages of game dev, to do a lot of what happens in Hollywood, which is script read-throughs and seeing how things read, if stories feel good, if characters feel good. Sometimes they write NPC dialogue and barks and little fun in-game audio logs or ads. And sometimes they also do sensitivity checks, which would make sense for a game like Alan Wake, since Alan Wake's protagonist, Saga Anderson, is a Black woman. Mm-hmm. And the people who work on Alan Wake are mostly from Finland. So they called Sweet Baby in and was kind of we're obviously not Black women from America. How does this read? Does this seem like this character is believable? Is there levels of this that seem like we're out of touch? Does she even feel like she fits right in this world? Like she seems naturally in here? And that's basically what they do. And that is not what a lot of gamers think they do, which is where this kind of spun out.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that even with the conversation around specifically even Alan Wake, is that as you said, like Remedy is from Finland. Like they are not Americans, even though they interact with Americans on just through the natural sort of business of operating a studio. But also as well, it's like, okay, yeah, they want to make sure that not only is it, like, obviously, as you said, like the for sensitivity reasons, but also it's like, is the dialogue believable? Like, it is coming from this character. Would this make sense? And at the core, that's essentially what like narrative consulting really is. And to say that, like, where it kind of turned into, this conversation turned into a very anti-woke sort of conversation, I even like giving the title of a conversation is giving it a little bit generous, too much credit. But I think as well, it's like, like these companies and these consultancies exist so that to be able to make these characters as believable as possible, because, you know, hey, video games hasn't had the best dialogue in its history, and there's been many a times where we've made fun of dialogue reads, and especially from like games coming from outside of North America, for sure. And so even just on the surface, without even sort of getting into making sure that it's a diverse voice, that's a whole other, like, just on that level, like making it believable is the core goal.
Yeah, and also something that the Sweet Baby team said to me in our interview that really struck a chord with me is that, you know, we are, like, essentially we're contract workers and we're freelancers, and we're coming into a game where these ideas are already set in place. And so, like, they can kind of take our advice and be like, fuck it, like, we don't want to take it. You know, there is no real, like, they come in and they go, you must do X, Y, and Z, or I don't know. They don't have the power in that relationship because they are contract workers contracted with a much larger studio doing this kind of work. You know, it's like if you've ever freelanced before, you know that you don't really have all the cards in your hands. You know, you're just submitting something and someone's either going, cool, we'll run it like this, or I don't like this, change it, or we're just completely not doing it. So I think the idea that even just the fundamental understanding of the power dynamic is wrong. So I think that's really interesting too, because I think the boogeyman of, like, they hold all this power to insist upon these things being in these games, or else I don't know what they think they would do, like the threat would be, because it's just not how it works. You know, again, they're a contractor, so there's not a lot of power dynamic there. Yeah,
exactly. And I will. Okay, so this is I haven't talked to you about this, but this is something that one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up this conversation was I personally have experience in narrative representation consulting. This might open me up to a lot because I haven't talked about this publicly, but it's one of those things I'm like, because I have experience in this, it's more of I don't know how to like how to be able to like talk about it without sort of at least addressing sort of my experience. In that, you're absolutely right. When I was brought in to consult, essentially it's already further along into the game. The script was pretty much done. They wanted some sort of help in regards to how does this character like work, and I will say it was for a blind character. And I also will say that I wasn't the only person brought in for this that was contracted. I'm an independent freelancer. I was not working with any other company, but I was brought in to consult on a blind character. And basically they were trying to figure out, okay, within this setting, how would this character get around basically their environment? And I was able to sort of pitch different ideas and what would work and what would be believable, and how to be able to, you know, best represent the blindness disability as best as possible without it sort of going into the stereotype of every blind person has to wear glasses and has a cane everywhere. That's not always the case. 9 out of 10 people who are blind actually do have some vision. So there's already that stereotype that we're trying to be able to avoid. And then, yes, I was brought in to be able to take a look at the script, make sure that for sensitivity reasons, I was able to sort of look at and see, okay, was there anything I need to change? And to be honest, there really wasn't a lot. I mean, pretty much the script was very, like, I had to, like, it was like changing a word here and there. Like, that literally was it. And as far as anything that I did or suggested or inspired in whatever narrative team that was working on this character, I don't know. I actually have not played it. And I'm going to say the game because I think it adds to the context of this. It was for Hogwarts Legacy. It was for the blind character Ominous in Slytherin. And I'm saying that not to be like, haha, this is another one that, you know, that like is the biggest game of 2023. What do you say to that? It's literally this is my experience. So that at least, and then now you understand the context of what that character was. And so for those who think that the narrative consulting is anything different than that, especially even coming from a narrative company like Sweet Baby Inc., it's kind of not the case.
It's very much not the case, but this is like the issue that, and I think also the article in and of itself, the reason why I think it started getting even crazier after that point was because this is 100% rooted in conspiracy theories, right? This is unfounded, you know, to be quite honest with you, right-wing leaning, large following people on YouTube and elsewhere that actually don't know firsthand how these things work, sharing these stories in a light that's like, yeah, this is what's going on. Like, they're obviously coming into games and they're forcing DEI, and that's the only way that this works. And what happened with that article was writing the article was then a way for these people who are already having this conversation in bad faith to imply that, well, the journalists are getting together and they're making sure that they're getting their story straight. And it's like, no, the story is straight. No matter how if it was me who wrote it, if it was someone like Rami Ismail, who's been talking about it recently, like someone like you said something, that's the story. And I think the problem is there's this idea that it's like opinion based. If it's not, that's just what narrative consultancy is this thing, and it is not this other thing. And I don't know how you can even have these conversations in good faith when someone like you who has this experience says something like this, and, you know, someone might clip this or quote it and be like, it's more bullshit. It's like, well, you know, I've told you what happened. This is what I did. This is my experience. This is actually what happens. I have this experience, and this is what I do for part of my life and making money and my job. But sure, person with like a Roman statue avatar on Twitter, you're right. It's not that. It's really, I think once the article came out, that was like the cabal grows, like it's the journalists are in on it too. And it's like, this is how this happened the first time. And, you know, no matter, it's a really difficult situation to be in, because you're kind of like, do you have these conversations with people that clearly don't want to listen? I mean, Rami's thread that he posted earlier today on Twitter was really, really, really well done, very clear. And again, he has tons of experience in this field. And it was a lot of, I'm not going to read this. And it's like, okay, well then this is it, you know, then you're going to believe what you believe. And I wanted to write that story to make it very clear that this is what this company does, and that the people who started this Steam page, who thought that they were being clever by not saying like outright, we don't like having black, and in the beginning they started by not outright saying we don't want black, queer, or like ugly women or any of these things in our games. They were just like, this is just an informed consumer movement. And it's like, I mean, I think you think you're being clever when you're doing that, but then, you know, the person who created the account in the first place, like, said in an interview that there's too many ugly women in games and that they didn't like what they did with Kratos in God of War. It's like, you don't understand the arc of the character that's been going for years. So I don't know where you go from there. It's just kind of like this horrible impasse of, I mean, we're telling you what we know and you don't want to listen. So what now?
Exactly. Yeah. And the whole thing, like, the only thing is, like, you know, at a studio, it literally is, it takes a village to be able to make a game. It takes a many amount of people. And whenever any consultant is brought in, they're like a visitor to that village. The village can listen to them or not. It's completely up to them. They could be like, yeah, you know what? We're like this person or this group has no idea what we're talking about. We're just going to like, you know, we're going to lose the money that we paid them. And then that's it. Like they can take as much or as little like influence as possible.
Yeah, and also they brought you in because they already had a blind character. And that's the other thing that's getting misunderstood here too, is that, you know, they brought in Sweet Baby because Saga Anderson was already determined to be a Black woman. And they just said, hey, is we doing this right? Like, is this come off okay? And that's the thing also why one of the subheads in my piece was like, no one is forcing this. This is just what's happening. And it's happening because, you know, despite all your efforts 10 years ago, the games industry is getting more diverse. Like, is it where it should be to like actually reflect the population in the world and the people who play games? No, there's probably still more work to be done, but it is getting more diverse. And so diverse people are going to tell stories that have to do with their lives or that reflect the world they know. And that's true to them and true to the world as well. It just feels like it's not true because, let's be completely honest, you hang out in like homogenous circles.
Yeah.
You know, these kinds of people. So I think that's one of the things as well that's really frustrating is just this still, no matter what you say, like, no, these characters were already in the game like this. No, Suicide Squad was already written completely and they got brought in to add supplementary dialogue, NPC barks, this, that, and the other thing. But you think they're the reason why Harley Quinn kills Batman? Like, what? Like,
yeah, no, that is so not the case. Rocksteady and WB would have had to have many conversations about that. Not just a forced, like, Sweet Baby does not like dictate how Warner Brothers makes their games. Like, we're talking two completely different size companies here. And also as well, it's like, you don't like, and you're not, and that I can guarantee that Sweet Baby Inc. is probably not the only company that they consult and contract with.
Of course not. And they're not even the biggest one in the industry by like a lot.
I know for a fact that there were other consultants who were brought in on what I was working on. Like, it is not my way or the highway. There is many different diverse, like, that's the whole thing about like being either a person of color or LGBTQ or a woman or disabled in this space. Everyone, there's a spectrum across every single marginalized community, and there are definitely different ways that, like, you may have the same similar experience, but you have, or the same thing, but you have completely different experiences. And they would be doing a misservice if they only relied on one company or one person to dictate how to be able to make their characters as believable as possible.
And I think it's just the conversation. Look, I think it's very funny because the way that things have gotten now is we kind of get in these pseudo intellectual arguments on Twitter, which is essentially like equivalent to me just individually ripping off each one of my eyelashes slowly because it's just torturous. But they come in and they say things like, well, how could you, they were inciting a harassment campaign against a Steam page and we're just harassing you back. And it's like, first of all, reporting a page that's violating TOS, even if they're doing it slyly, is not a harassment campaign. And just like me doing my job as a journalist, going into this Discord group and asking if people wanted to speak with me, asking their take on things, confirming with them in my DMs that I would not be using their name in my piece, still turned into like, people are doing gotchas of like, you were trying to dox them. I'm like, no, I was doing journalism. And I think you don't know what happens in this job, but I'm not a person on Twitter just looking to like find someone's name and post it places. I was trying to do my job. And also, like, if I did dox you in my article, I could get sued. My company could get sued. I could get fired. Like, that's just breaching ethics on like so many levels. And so it's just, where do you even start with how this has morphed into what people are now calling Gamergate 2.0. And like literally waking up in the morning and being like, am I in the center of this? And is it me this time around? Is crazy.
I know.
Very weird.
Are you the Anita this time? It's
I know. And somebody called, actually Hassan did it as a joke on his stream. He was like, Alyssa Sarkeesian. And I'm like, no.
No. Oh my goodness. No.
Don't start doing it. It's funny, but don't. They'll run with it.
Oh my God.
I'm happy that I can laugh at it. The weekend was a little weird, you know, and it's also, you and I are on the internet all the time. Everyone in our industry is on the internet all the time. And we're on Twitter because Twitter, even in its broken state, is still, I'm calling it Twitter. I'm not calling it anything else.
Same. Yeah.
Even in its broken state where it can be filled with sock puppet accounts and blue checks that randomly bought it. And the reporting function doesn't really work. You know, I have reported more tweets in the last weekend, and I have not gotten a single confirmation that the report did anything in 5 or 6 days. So it's like, okay, I know nobody's doing anything there. It's just, even in that realm, like we're still on this all the time. And to try and explain to my friends who are not on the internet that, you know, I'm the accidental epicenter of like a new harassment campaign that's based solely online is bizarre. Like my friends were just like blanked. They're like, I don't understand what you're saying at all.
Ignorance is bliss, ain't it?
Right? I wish I could go back to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind me, but it's the internet. I just want to have it
exactly
cut out of my head.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, yeah, like people honestly, like outside of our circles or outside of it's like, okay, just, you know, just don't pay attention to social media. But when it's part of your job and even for myself, it's part of like my advocacy. And in order for me to be able to even to work and to be able to advocate for disability and accessibility, I have to be on the places where unfortunately it's not the best place to be. And that is Twitter. And so and it's just unfortunate that we kind of have to be in that spot. And I did actually want to ask you in regards, because you brought up the obviously that the one thing that they keep bringing up is that one person from supposedly Sweet Baby that basically said, hey, can take this like Steam page down, and harassing this Steam page. But do you like what are your kind of thoughts on that specifically? And like, do you have a response, or have you given a response to that at all? Because it keeps coming up, and I'm like, why?
I mean, it keeps coming up because this is the playbook, right? We've done this. Like we've done this before. They were taking videos of Kim Belair giving a GDC speech from years ago and cutting like one section of it out where she was talking about, you know, if you think that something should be in a game and the higher ups kind of don't want it, go have lunch with marketing and tell them, like, scare them of what it would be like if you don't include these kinds of things in a game because of how much budget goes towards marketing, and marketing would know, oh, well, what do you mean we're selling this game that's like every other game? That's kind of okay, I guess we'll figure out an angle. But they just cut it so that she looks like she's saying, you know, go to marketing and terrify them or something. And it was like, this is what they do, you know? And these screenshots of the employee at Sweet Baby asking for this page to get reported and then for this person's Steam page to get reported, I cannot tell you how little that aligns itself with like harassment. Like I don't think you guys think harassment is the same thing. Like
they keep using that word, but I don't think that means what they think it means.
I don't think. And I think, you know, if you work for a company and you see that your company is being targeted on a page that is one of the main ways that the companies that paid you to work for them get money, which is Steam, wouldn't you as a company be going, whoa, hang on. If they're doing this and all these people are joining this and then they're not going to buy these games, how does this affect, you know, what we do for work, especially if the premise upon which they are made this list is wrong, that they fundamentally don't even understand what we do. And they're saying this company made all these games and made them shit, which is so funny because like they worked on Alan Wake and God of War and like Sable, which are all like beloved, obviously good games. And because they also did work on Suicide Squad, you think that they suck or that they make bad games? You don't like Suicide Squad because of like capitalism and microtransaction bullshit. Like you don't know, like, you know, It's that kind of stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like, I don't think it was ever a harassment campaign. I think it was someone who knew, anybody, I think, with critical thinking skills could look at that page and know exactly what it was for. And just because you were being clever by not outright saying, we don't want Black people in games and this is what's happening in your Steam page, the point of why you were making that page was clear to anybody who could read and understand what you were saying. Like the subtext, the context, it's obvious. And then even if you wanted to argue that it was fundamentally misunderstood what the page was for, you just had to spend 5 minutes in the Discord and see what everybody was saying in the Discord. And then it's like full mask off. Obviously, you know what these people don't want in their games. Because I was in there for an hour and it was exactly what you would expect. And I shared a screenshot in my story. It was, reject modernity, embrace tradition. And it was just like big boobied anime girls. And then, Zarya from Overwatch and the lead from Forspoken as like the things we don't want. And it's like, I mean, you guys aren't being clever just because you're not saying we're sexist or we're racist or we're homophobic. You're just showing that you're sexist and you're racist and you're homophobic, or at least a lot of the people in this group are. Yeah. So I think that's the frustrating thing, is like they think they're playing this gotcha of like, we were just an innocent group. It's like, no, you weren't.
No.
and it's like, and then your reaction to the story just prove really who you are deep down, because look at how people are treating me, or how people are treating the people at Sweet Baby, or anybody who has shared anything in support of my story or Sweet Baby or DEI consulting or not DEI consulting or narrative consulting. Like, they're just bombarding it with horrid shit. And so it's like, I mean, show, don't tell, and you did it. So that's, I think, just the wildest part of all of this, is this like this circular conversation, as if you think that there's a gotcha in there somewhere when there's not. Yeah. At all.
Yeah, agreed. And it's so sad to be able to see like folks like yourself and like a lot of my friends on social, like they're having to lock down their accounts and try to be able to get off the internet for a while because of just saying one thing, and then it just becomes an entire like reply thread of just harassment. And it's funny you call them sock puppets. Actually, I call them anime avatars. Because
I mean, that is another, that's a good one too. Anime avatars are a good one too. Anime avatars who speak like Sephiroth, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's wild. I mean, and I think the thing that got them even crazier was me saying something that is true, which is that you can't be racist against white people. And I think, again, there's a fundamental misunderstanding, whether you're accidentally misunderstanding this because you don't know better, which is like, okay, then let's have a teachable moment. Sure. But a lot of the times you are purposefully misunderstanding it. Racism has to do with systems of power. You can be bigoted against white people. You can dislike white people for no reason other than them being white. And that's a thing that happens. Sure. But you cannot systemically make a white person's life more difficult at work or more difficult in here, there, or the other thing if you are yourself a person of color, because the systems of power have always leaned towards white people and leaned towards cis white men. And so I just think that saying something that in most circles is not controversial, that you can't be racist against white people, and it now being turned into this, like, people are like editing pictures with my quote next to it. They're emailing my company saying, you should fire your racist worker. And I'm like, the layers of think here are really interesting because I'm white.
Yeah.
So
I even love the one you posted today about the someone reaching out to the New York Rangers, and you're like, I'm just a fan.
Excuse me. I might have a tattoo for them, okay, and I might watch every single one of their games, but like, they do not employ me. And do you think the range, and also let's be so for real here, hockey isn't like notoriously known as the most open-minded world either. So it's like,
and I come from the land of hockey.
you know, like how many people of color even play hockey? You see all the drama that what happens when they try and integrate like pride nights and stuff. Like the New York Rangers are not going to be like, oh wait, racist person, your idea of a racist person, banner. Like it's half the people that go to hockey games are racist, if we're being completely honest with each other. And it doesn't change how much I love the Rangers, but
yeah,
you know, it's just wild.
It is just wild, and I kind of wanted to end like I know we're almost out of time here, but I do want to ask sort of this one question. This may be the most like a hard question to answer for sure.
Okay.
Where do you like? How do you see, or how would you wish that essentially that we could be able to move forward, like not only just, you know, but without obviously, you know, burning down the internet and, you know, starting from scratch again. Like, how do you see like us being able to move forward as an industry and making sure that, you know, we can be able to have multiple different conversations from different groups of people so that gaming can be for everyone. And I do mean everyone.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Take This wrote a great story about this a couple of days ago. And then, of course, Dr. Rachel Cowart, who was one of the people behind that story, then had to lock down her Twitter because of the hate and harassment she was getting from it, which then I felt bad because I replied to it and I was like, great, I brought them here. It's like that It Follows horror movie. But if it starts first of all, if you have the outreach, if you have the following, if you have the audience, this is why I tweeted an Audre Lorde quote a few days ago that said, your silence will not protect you. I know that it's like people don't understand it and they were like, that's a threat. I'm like, okay, just say you didn't read Audre Lorde. But it's basically saying, if you remain quiet when you see things happening towards people that maybe you would not fall into that same category and you would not be getting that kind of hate because maybe you're a privileged person, whether you're a white guy or you work really high up in the industry and people know you so well that you're like maybe, I don't know, the face of the awards of the year or something like that. You not saying anything does not mean that the moment somebody wants to attack you, whether it's because you find the time that you said something in 2012 that you should not harass people at the Game Awards one year, if they find that clip and start resharing it again, they're going to come for you too. They're going to do this with everyone that they deem other. And so I think people who have outreach should be loudly and declaratively speaking out against this kind of stuff. I think the studios should be doing that much more clearly because, as Take This said in their piece, silence in the face of these kinds of things was proven in 2014 to have been the people who were the bad actors in this consider that like a tacit, like, we're okay with this because you haven't said anything. And so if you're quiet in these moments because you think maybe you can dodge the hate storm, you're just going to make it more difficult for people who are getting hatred right now. And you're not going to keep yourself safe from when they eventually turn around and decide they don't like that the latest Fortnite character isn't, you know, rail thin with cracking tits. And they're going to be like, woke media strikes Fortnite. And it's like, this will not stop unless you present an obviously united front in what is not okay in this industry. And I think that's one way forward, is like being really clear with what is not cool, with what should not be allowed, not letting these people who are perpetuating these things in these circles anymore, like, do not let them show up to, you know, an industry event without you confronting them for the things that they have said or something like that. And I think continuing on doing the work that we have been doing to try and make gaming more accessible for people who are either underrepresented, underprivileged, marginalized in other ways will only make it so that more people in the industry who are othered or have been for a very long time can continue to integrate, and then these things will continue to happen naturally, and eventually you can't keep saying it's a conspiracy theory because it's just still happening. In a perfect world, I would also love Twitter to be like better policed. I would love for social media to be like actually protecting people when death threats are coming in and things like that. or when someone's clearly making 9 accounts just to harass someone, like maybe stop that. But that's something that I don't think will happen with the current leader at that site. But I think the only way forward is to, like, don't be quiet here. And again, I think Keza at The Guardian said something really, you know, don't put your fingers in your ears and don't pretend like it'll pass you by because you didn't want to catch a stray in this scenario. You know, we cannot make the same mistakes that we made the first time this started rearing its ugly head by just letting, in a lot of cases, women and people of color take the fall for this. You know, the more people that speak out, the more obvious it is that it's not tolerated, it's not accepted, and, you know, you should shut the fuck up and stop being mean. And that's what I'm hoping people will do, but I don't know. I really don't.
You know, you absolutely said it correctly. I was literally about to respond. It's like, we can't be repeating the same mistakes that we did 10 years ago. And otherwise, this is going to keep coming up again and again. And unfortunately, we're going to start to lose people, amazing, talented people in this industry because of a very vocal minority that likes to think of themselves as the majority.
Yeah.
So
you just have to remember that a lot of different people anonymously posting on Twitter does not represent an entire community, and that, as everyone has shown already in many cases, there's more than half of gamers in polls want to see more diversity in games. There's so many more women gamers. There's so many more gamers of color that are out there playing these video games and enjoying it. And I think the funniest part of this whole conversation is people saying that someone like me couldn't have survived in the Call of Duty lobbies in 2012. And it's like, bitch, I was in the center of those lobbies and I still decided to take a job in this industry. So
and funny enough, I'm working on Call of Duty right now. So there you go. So we're already infiltrated. We're
on the inside already. It's like, you think I didn't Halo 3 in 2007 was like a good space for me to be? Like, come on. Obviously, I stayed. So I just think, we just have to make sure that we have each other's backs. And also, if you see someone that's getting harassed, reach out to them in a DM.
Yeah.
Just check in on them. Make sure they're okay. You did. A lot of people did. And it meant a lot to me because for a while this weekend, it does feel really alienating. And I kept joking to my partner, watch out, is there a red dot on my head in the like living room? Like, it was, you know, it gets a little freaky at times, but you do have to remember that these people are hiding behind anime avatars and, you know, Marcus Aurelius quotes for a reason, because you would never act like this in public.
Agreed. So. Yeah. Well, Alyssa, thank you so very much for joining me. And like I said, I know this was a heavy topic to talk about, and I appreciate you talking about this professionally and, you know, like passionately, because it is something that that I think definitely needs to be talked about, as you said. So I was going to say, hey, if anyone wants to be able to follow you on the internet, where can people find you? But that may be moot at this point. But if you feel like it, you totally can.
First, I would just like to say thank you for having me. I think a lot of people, like I said, stick their head in the sand in these scenarios, and it takes a brave person to be like, you know what? Yeah, bring the Scarlet Letter on. Let's talk to her. So thank you. I would like to say that you can find me in your mama's house. I'm just kidding.
I almost wanted it there because it's perfect, but
honestly, I'm on Twitter. You know where I am. It's Alyssa Merc. People will find me either way, and I'm sure you've seen flattering and unflattering photos of me on the internet. So that's me. I'm not going to tell you any of my other socials because I had to lock all those down because you guys were being fucking weird. So
well, I'm hoping that those who are, you know, regular listeners of the show won't do that. But for those who find this afterwards, don't be a dick. Anyway, so thank you so much, Alyssa. And thank you all for listening. And stay tuned next week for another episode of Gaming Insight. Bye.
Bye, guys.